Afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to have you with us. Oh, we have one more student joining us. Welcome to Rocky to You Science Outreach and our Lab Backstage program. My name is Jeannie. I am coming at you from not Rockefeller University, but my kitchen table. Welcome. And I am the director of Rocky to You Science Outreach, which basically means I find money in places to pay people. So I'm so happy to bring you here with us today, and we're super pumped to introduce you to one of our awesome scientists. Thank you, everybody. I say this is one of the most impressive classes. Your pictures are great because usually we have students who are not putting their cameras on, which is no judgment if you don't want to use your camera. But thank you. It's nice to see your faces. So I'm going to hand it over to our friend Kip, who is a scientist, and Kip is going to talk about their work. So Kip, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Like she said, my name's Kip. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've always been interested in science. I would try to go to whatever science outreach events were available to me as a kid, and then when I got to university I studied ecology, and I got really interested in insects and specifically ants. So I've been working on those for a few years, and a couple years ago I moved to New York to Rockefeller University to study ants here. So that's what I'll be talking to you about today, and I'm just hoping that we can have sort of an engaging conversation about this. So I'll probably ask some questions, and if I ask a question, you can just feel free to unmute yourself and answer. Or if you have a question for me at any time, there might be an option for you to raise your hand in the Zoom, like a button you can click. And if you do that, then I can be interrupted and you can ask it. I heard from your teacher that you guys have been recently talking about invasive species. And I'm just curious to hear from you guys, what sorts of invasive species have you been talking about recently? I see Juan is raising his hand.
Well, we've been doing a project where some students in our class, well, all of them, we choose an invasive species. Like I chose cane toads, and yeah, we're doing a project on it.
Very cool. Would anyone else like to share what invasive species they chose for that project? Looks like James raised their hand. Hi, James.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, so the invasive species that I met is the gypsy moth.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, so I was excited to hear you guys have been talking about that. One thing that I sometimes like to think about is when an invasive species moves from where it used to live into a new territory. What's it eating? Is it eating different food than it used to eat? Whether or not food is available is probably pretty important for whether the species can actually survive in the new habitat. And I wanted to, well, I don't know that I see the polling option available. I thought I might give you guys a poll in Zoom, but that's okay. I just wanted to ask, what do you guys think? So I mentioned that I study ants. I'm curious, what do you guys think ants eat? I see Grayson. Grayson, would you like to answer?
I think ants eat plants and other things they find on the ground.
That's a really good answer. Does anyone, maybe there's somebody else who has another answer? I might mispronounce this name, but Junica?
It's Janika,
Junica, sorry about that.
but I think they eat kind of like what humans eat because they sometimes take the humans' food, like stuff like bread and potatoes, the like normally what just humans would eat, and also plants.
Awesome. Both really good answers. And both frankly correct. Ants eat all kinds of things. And it really just depends on what species you're talking about and where you find them. So like you guys said, especially if you find them in an area where there's lots of humans around, they will probably eat things that humans drop on the ground. I get asked a lot the following question, which I always find a little bit funny. And that's, what's the difference between the red ants that I see and the black ants that I see? And so it seems like to me, a lot of people, when they think about ants, they have two categories in their mind, red ants and black ants. In fact, we ant biologists know that ants are incredibly diverse. There are more than 10,000 different species that we've identified, and there's probably many more. And they eat a variety of different things. Some of them are strict vegetarians. Some of them are strict carnivores and hunt their food. Some of them actually will basically farm other insects and exclusively eat what they provide. But the thing that all ants basically have in common is that they live in colonies. So they live in close proximity with one another, usually family groups. And they interact with each other extensively. There's lots of communication going on. I'm curious, how do you guys think ants communicate with each other? So as humans, we talk with one another. Grayson, I see your hand raised.
They use their antennas, like how bees use their antennas.
Nice, yeah, that is true. The antennae are involved. There was Javani. I probably mispronounced that, but I saw your hand raised.
Yes, it's Giovanni.
Giovanni, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I agree with Grayson. They like connect or talk with their antennas.
Cool. So their antennae are intimately involved. I'm just going to tell you that a lot of what they're doing is something that some members of the lab here recently learned, is that a lot of what they're doing is smelling. There's a little bit of tasting involved, but a lot of it involves smelling chemical components called pheromones that the ants release themselves. And I wanted to show you an example of ant social behavior in the colonies and ant communication via chemicals that a member of our lab who's recently graduated has studied. Are you guys able to see this picture that I'm supposed to be sharing? Cool, I see some thumbs up. So this is right now it's a still image, but I'm going to show you a video. And can you see my mouse as well, actually, by any chance? So right here, this is an ant, and these are a bunch of other ants. And all these ants are basically sisters, and they live in a colony together. This is sort of their nest area. This is a arena that they're allowed to walk around in. And this is a tunnel between the two. And this is a setup that I'll show you in a minute that Vikram Chandra, a former student in the lab, constructed. And what he wanted to study was how these ants get their food, basically. So the ants we study in the lab, they exclusively eat the brood of other ants. So that's what this is right here. It's an immature ant that we've dyed blue with food coloring so that you can see it in this video. And we're going to watch how these ants find and how they collect their food. So you can see she's kind of exploring the arena. She hasn't found it yet. There we go. What do you guys think she's doing with the food? You can just unmute yourself, I think.
I think she's trying to take it to her sisters.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe
I just think she's trying to eat it.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, what's she doing now?
Oh wait, she's gonna tell her sisters there's food, and so they can help carry.
It looks like that's what she did, huh?
I think she signaled them to come over.
Oh man. How do you think that she did that?
I think they're gonna have a whole feast.
Oh yeah, it looks like it. So you can sort of see they've all sort of aggregated on the piece of food. And then you've got some that are sort of running back to the nest, they're checking things out. Yeah, all great answers. So one thing that I wanted to highlight was did you guys notice anything different about when the first ant was going to the food and when the other ants went to the food? Juanez, I saw your hand.
So I think the difference is that I have two answers. So one of the differences is that they weren't with one ant. They weren't well, that ant wasn't really eating it. I thought it was gonna eat it, but then all the other ants and that one ant, they all came together and they started. I think they were eating it.
Cool. So what I would just want to replay is first we're gonna sort of watch in fast motion the path that the first ant took when it left the nest. It sort of takes this roundabout route. It doesn't really know where the food is. It finds the food, and then it goes kind of in a squiggly line, but more or less, it doesn't go directly back to the nest, but it finds its way back. And my question to you is, does that look similar to the route that its sisters took when they went and found the food? They don't run straight to the food either. They sort of follow the path that she took back. Does anyone have an idea of why and how they took the same path that she took?
I think it's their sense of smell
Oh, okay. So what do you think they're smelling?
that the sister who killed it went in that path, so they will go in that path to eat it.
That's absolutely right. So when she's coming back, we can't see it because we're not looking at the right angle, but she's actually dabbing her abdomen against the ground as she walks, and she's laying down little bits of pheromone that then the ants can smell on the ground as they are leaving the nest. The other question I had is, let's just watch her walk into the nest again.
Can I ask something?
How do you think she told her nestmates that there was food to be had? Like, how do you think she alerted them? Junika?
Okay.
I think she alerted them by using the little ant thingies.
Her antennae?
Yeah.
That's very close. And so actually they actually smelled how she alerted them using their antennae. But we're not sure where it comes from, but somehow she released some kind of pheromone into the air that they were able to smell. I'll share this video with you guys so that you can look at it more if you'd like. But for now, I'd like to sort of show you more around the lab, and I'll just briefly show you the type of arena that we used to film that video. So this is the unit that was filmed in, or it's one of them. And so this is where the nest area was. This is where the foraging arena was. It's sort of falling apart in my hands. But these are little areas over here that we keep open so that we can water the plaster that's underneath. So basically they're walking around on plaster, which is something you might find in like a wall somewhere. And we keep that wet, so it's sort of similar to soil that the ants are used to walking on, to allow them to, feel comfortable and be able to survive in their environment. And I'll just show you briefly how this can be taken apart. Basically, Vikram, he used like a laser cutter to cut this plastic in this way that this was used. And basically, it comes apart just with these screws. And you can sort of, if I can unscrew it, you can sort of see how it was assembled. And basically there's this top layer that we can remove. This second layer that has this mold here. Then there's a layer that's just plaster and it's sort of beaten up there, but that's what they're walking on. And then another layer underneath. And I'd also like to show you sort of where we filmed that video. And for that, I'm gonna take you guys around the lab. This is the lab where we do a lot of this work. Let's see. Got some ant pictures on the walls that we're passing. There's another one, the close-up picture of an ant. So the room that I'm about to walk into, it's probably in reverse for you, I'm not sure, but it says USDA containment facility. The ants that we study, they're actually invasive species. They're not invasive here yet, but they potentially could become invasive here. So we have to keep them under strict containment, quarantine control, so they don't get out. And we're going to walk into a climate room. So this room is, you may be able to hear some of it. It's temperature and humidity controlled so that the ants like how it feels. And I'm just going to show you, these are cameras right here that are pointing down at this nest that I laid down there. That's the little nest that I just took apart for you. And these are a bunch of cameras just to sort of show you how this is set up. We have to get the lighting right. So there's these strips of LED lights along the wall. And that's sort of how that video was taken. While I'm in this room, I'll also show you, these are just little Tupperware boxes that we keep colonies of ants inside. And I'll go ahead and try to open one up for you. It's like very similar Tupperware to what you might keep leftover food in. But we put plaster in the bottom and then we put ants inside of it. So I don't know how much you can see, but all those little brown dots are ants, and the white thing, or the lighter colored things that they're walking on top of, those are their larvae, their babies. And then over here is their food. So ants on top of babies crawling around, food, and then plaster floor. Pretty fun.
Kip, what kind of food is in there?
So the food that we feed them is basically, it's all the larvae and pupae of other ants. So they eat other ants basically.
Can we take some questions?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, please.
So I think we have, James, it would be great if you can ask your question.
Okay, my question is like, oops. No. Okay, so my question is like, did you just like find them and pick them up, or did you have to like buy them and then just like, or did you have to buy them?
Oh, okay, yeah. So the ants that we study in the lab, we basically found in the field somewhere. So the professor who runs this lab collected these ants. Well, this colony, it came from San Croix in the Caribbean, an island in the Caribbean, and he brought it here to the States just to study. And he had to get special permits to do so, because like I said, this was a potentially invasive species. And then the food, as I mentioned, it's also ants. Some of that we go down to Georgia and collect, and then some of it you can buy, because in certain places, ant larvae are considered a food that people can eat, and so you can buy them in large quantities for that reason.
Wow, can we take another question?
Absolutely, and as we're doing it, I'm going to sort of walk to another area, but go ahead and ask, please.
Hi, Jabini. Please feel free to ask your question, and I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly.
Yeah, it's Giovanni. And my question is, when you take the ants from wherever they were from, do you give them back when they're enough?
The unfortunate answer is no. We do not take them back usually. The ones that we study in the lab here, we basically maintained them in the lab since we've had them. There are some cases when in the past I've taken ants, and when I'm done doing what I want to do, put them back. But I think more typically we don't.
Okay, and can we also take another question before moving on to the next segment from Aldiris?
Absolutely.
When the ants lay eggs, how big are the eggs and how many do they lay at a time?
That's a really good question. So you asked how big are they and how many do they lay?
Yes.
So I think I'll show you something pertaining to this. You'll be able to see the eggs in a second, because we're going to look at some ants under the microscope. But usually, in our case, each ant probably lays 1 or 2 eggs per, or maybe 3, I'm not sure, per egg laying time. So basically, about once a month they'll lay eggs, and so probably each ant lays 1 or 2 eggs per month in our case. But in some species of ants that have ant queens, which you may have heard of, sort of like queens of bee colonies, ants also have those. The answer to this question can be like dramatically larger. So in the case of army ants, the queen is enormous. She can be like this big, and she is actually pumping out several eggs per second. So like as many as like 7 eggs per second she can be laying. She's basically an egg assembly line.
Wow.
Maybe I can show you a picture of those in a second.
All right, one last question from Juanis, and then we'll give you the floor. There are just a lot of questions coming in.
That's great.
All right. So, have you ever seen like how do ants act when they're like sad?
It's hard to know whether the ants are sad, because, well, I don't speak their chemical language, but what I will say is that some ants, maybe they're just loitering around the nest, not doing very much, and so ants can vary in how active they are, basically. That doesn't necessarily mean they're sad, of course. They could be very happy not doing anything. But yeah, so I'm not really sure the answer to that question. That's a good one, though. I'm briefly just going to go and grab some ant nests, and we're going to look at them under the microscope. And I'm happy to take more questions throughout. But I thought it might be fun to look at some ants live.
That sounds amazing. Ants are so beautiful under the microscope. Has anybody ever seen an ant under the microscope before? Yeah, okay, so this might be one of the first times. And so I'm gonna call on another person for a question, Dakari.
Is Dakari. And,
Dakari, thank you.
And I have a question. Have you ever came in close encounter with a queen bee? I mean, not a queen bee, a queen ant.
All the time. I used to specifically study the queens and what they did basically in fire ants, which are a big invasive species of ants in the American Southeast. So in Georgia, where I'm from, those are hard to walk 2 feet without running into a colony or stepping into a colony and getting stung. But I was studying the queens of that species, and they do indeed look very different from the workers. Maybe I can show you a picture in a little bit. I'm gonna.
All right, Addison, go ahead and ask your question.
How can you tell the difference between the queen ant and the other ants?
That's a great question. I'm gonna run and just grab a picture that will very quickly demonstrate that answer.
Awesome, awesome. They have a lot of really cool images and pictures in their lab, and we're gonna have a whole bunch of videos and pictures from their lab on our website that we'll make sure that your teacher gets a link for so that you can check it out. It's really, really cool. Let's see, I guess Juana, if you wanna ask your question, I think Kip has AirPods on, so Kip will be able to hear you.
I'm still listening, so
great.
Go ahead.
So, my question is, can you tell us at least three interesting facts about ants we might not know?
Hey, absolutely.
Is that a question from your homework?
No.
That sounds directly from the worksheet.
Fun fact.
So this is a picture of an ant queen. That's the queen, and that's the worker. So it's pretty easy to tell just by looking at them. And this is a very extreme case. So you can actually see the white stuff like that. That's her body. It's just so full. Basically, her egg laying machinery gets so big. And you can even see right here, that's a pile of eggs coming out of the tip of her abdomen. Her egg laying machinery basically becomes so highly developed that her body is like severely extending to accommodate it. In most ant species, it's a little bit less extreme looking, but you can still tell the difference because their body parts look different. So basically the queen will typically have a larger abdomen as compared with its head size. And then also her thorax, the middle part of her body, is more, they basically look different. Please keep asking questions. Just while we do, I'm gonna try to set us up to look at these ants under the microscope.
Cool. All right, Amari.
So, yeah, this is right here a picture of ants under the microscope, and I'll try to get this set up good. Go ahead and ask the question.
Yeah, go ahead, Amari.
What will happen if the ant died while they're laying eggs?
The ant died while laying eggs. It depends. Sometimes the egg would survive, and sometimes it might not. I'll try to see if I can zoom into where you guys can actually see these eggs. So these ants are on top of a combination of eggs and pupae, which are basically little, it's like the cocoon stage of a moth or a butterfly. Right here, these things right here, these are eggs of these ants, these as well. And the brown ants are walking on top of the white or sort of clear looking eggs right here.
All right, Janika, ask your question.
What happens if the queen ant dies?
Oh, wonderful question. When the queen ant dies, typically she's the main reproducer in the colony. She's the main egg layer. So the colony will usually die unless a new queen can enter the colony and become the new queen. But otherwise, they might die. Or sometimes they'll fuse with another colony, depending on the species.
All right, James, you have a question.
Okay, my question is like, what would happen? Do you have like a live image or anything of like a queen bee? I mean, not I keep saying queen bee. I mean, a queen ant.
Unfortunately, we don't have any queen ants in the lab. So I can't do that right now. But I could at some point send your teacher a video of that.
Thank you, that would be great.
This is fun. So here you can see little baby larvae. So we're under the microscope here. That's what this sort of looks like an egg, but you can see it's sort of moving around. It's moving its head around. That's like a little baby begging for food, basically. And she is interacting with it.
All right, Amari, go ahead and ask your question.
Is the queen ant the protector of regular ants?
Very good question. And the answer is emphatically no. Well, most of the time. She is basically she's basically just a reproducer, which means that in a typical ant colony, she is the mother of all of the ants in the colony, but it's really her daughters, the workers, that protect her most of the time. Usually when the colony is starting up, though, she might be involved in protecting her young. But once the colony has become established, she is more involved in just laying eggs. And they're involved in feeding the young and grabbing the food and protecting her.
Okay, how about Alviras?
I have two questions. One question is, are there any boys? Boy ants?
The answer is yes. They don't play much of a role in the life of the colony. They basically are only involved in mating, and then they don't really play a role in the colony life. So I don't have any right now, but you can tell them apart because they have wings and then they have tiny little heads. Maybe I'll send a picture of those too.
Another question is, why did you choose to study ants?
That's a great question. Well, it's because, like I mentioned before, all ants live in colonies. And that's just always been fascinating to me. They're always involved in behaviors together. The life cycle of a colony is so much more complex than the life cycle of an organism, a single individual, basically. And ants are a great place to study how that works, and yeah, how it evolved, basically.
All right, how about Giovanni?
How did the queen bee get big?
Oh, that's a good question. So let me think about this for a second. There are sort of two answers to that question. One of them is basically that it has to do with what the environment was like when she was being raised. So basically, she sort of received more nutrition basically, and so she was able to get bigger because of that. And then the other answer to that is sort of, why do large individuals become queens? And the answer is basically that in ants, if any individual reaches large body size, they will also have the capacity to lay lots of eggs. Whereas if they are at small body size, they don't. They have much more limited capacity to lay eggs.
Okay, Dakari.
My question is, where are the queen ants originally from?
Originally from, I'm not sure. What do you mean exactly?
I mean, like, where were they born?
Where were they born? They're born in the same colonies that the worker ants are born in. It's just that some individuals, depending on maybe the time of year or the part of the nest or the time of day they were laid or something, some individuals get to eat more than others, or get to eat higher quality food than others.
All right. So how about here's William. Why don't you join us for a question?
Before you said where you get ants were from the fields, but you said you have many different species. Were they all bunched together, or did you get them separate?
Yeah, they all live in. So yeah, typically a single ant colony that you find will only have one species, and you can find lots of different species of ants. I would imagine if you guys went outside right now and started looking for ants, you would find several different species pretty quickly. The different species will often live in different types of nests, but they can all be in the same single location that you're looking in. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and well, also the ants that we study that we like very much, they are, I mentioned that they are invasive. They're native to Bangladesh, but they're found everywhere in the world that is tropical. They're not found anywhere that's more temperate, like the United States or anything, at least not naturally. We have them here, but we brought them here. And we think that's because they basically they like it warm and they can't stand cold temperatures.
Justice, please go ahead and ask your question.
Can ants get sick?
Absolutely they can, and they do. So I'll just show you, it's pretty sad. But I think there was a dead ant in one of these colonies. Yeah, there's some dead ants in this one. So this colony has several ants that got sick and died. You can see one of them right here, I think. That right there is currently a dead ant. So presumably it got sick beforehand. There are a few ways that can happen. It can have an infection, like with a virus or with bacteria, or commonly in the lab, fungus. It can also starve to death, which we try to avoid at all costs because we like to keep these things alive. But yeah, and then you might imagine in the COVID year that ant colonies are a place where it's hard to socially distance, and they're in fact they don't basically. So if one ant gets sick, it's very likely that other members of the colony might get sick as well.
Okay, we have a few minutes left, but Jaden, it would be super great if you could ask your question. Or I'm not sure, maybe Jaden doesn't, okay, I think Jaden might have lowered their hand. So how about—
There was a question in the chat too.
Okay,
Janika
we'll
asked
take,
if I can,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry. She asked if I can memorize every species of ants. I probably could if I wanted to, but I've never tried. The nice thing though is that you can sort of break them down into groups. So for instance, the ants that we study are close relatives of army ants. So I can sort of mentally categorize them into that group and then think about them that way. So I have a shorthand way of memorizing useful groups of ants.
So Jaden is having technical difficulties, but will type their question in. But in the meantime, can we hear from Juanis?
So my question is, what is the scientific name of a fire ant, I think it was called?
Yeah, so fire ants are in the, I'm going to type it in the chat. Fire ants are in the genus Solenopsis, and the name of the species that's invasive in the American Southeast is Solenopsis invicta. And then there are other fire ants that are actually native to southern US. And one of the species that I actually have studied previously is called Solenopsis geminata. Oh, and
right,
just while I'm naming names, the ants that we study in the lab are called clonal raider ants. And their scientific name is Ocerea beroy. That's just for fun.
That's a very fun name. I think the class has to leave at 2 p.m. So that gives us 2 minutes, and maybe we can take Jaden's question. What inspired you to study ants?
That's a great question. So I basically was interested in ecology for a long time, and I was studying abroad in Costa Rica, which is a very tropical area, and there's a type of ant that lives there called a leafcutter ant. I'd encourage you guys to look them up if you're interested, but basically what they do is they will cut little bits off of leaves and they will carry them in lines that look like highways from the plant they were carrying it from back to their nest. And basically I was walking around and I just realized that I was crossing an ant highway with all these ants carrying leaves on their backs. And then I leaned down to look at them, and then I noticed that on the leaves there were little bitty ants. Well, on the leaves there were just like half the size or even a third of the size of their sisters. Maybe I can find a picture of this to send also. But the little ant riding the leaf was cleaning the leaf while it was being carried. And I just found this fascinating. So that's what inspired me to study ants. I haven't been able to kick the habit yet.
Sounds amazing. Ms. Doherty, I think, is there a way that we can maybe make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to get some questions answered? Could we potentially have them written down, and maybe we can get back with the pictures and a couple of answers here and there? Is that something that would be helpful?
Yeah, great. I can compile them and send them to you if you guys are cool with that.
Not that I want to make more work, but maybe each person in your lab can maybe take a question and send an answer back if that's okay. Because I love how engaged and how passionate you all are about asking questions, and that's really what science is all about, is asking questions. So you're participating as mini scientists right now by talking about this research. So thank you so much. Kip, thank you for your time. Your work is super fascinating, and I'm so glad that we were able to showcase that to our lovely scholars on the other end of our Zoom. And I hope one day you'll get to come to Rockefeller University and either to visit or to become a scientist, because that's where scientists study. So it's a great place to come. Yeah, any other final thoughts that we should share, Ms. Doherty or Kip?
I just wanted to emphasize what Jeannie said, which was you guys had wonderful questions today, and that many of these questions are right in line with the kinds of things that we try to think about and try to answer when we're studying ants. So stay curious. Go look at some ants if you want, and just keep questioning.